Kia ora, Amiria Makamo. No gang patches, no branding, no gang gatherings in public. That's what the coalition government is promising to crack down on crime. This morning's announcements are tough talk, but who's going to do the cracking down? In small towns where gang members way outnumber police, locals are wondering how it'll work. And here's the worry, police officers are wondering that too. Tonight in this special investigation, Kristen Hall is speaking with cops, breaking ranks to speak out.
A tale of two towns.
We have lots of beautiful beaches, lots of outdoor activities to do. There's really no excuse to get bored here.
There's the Aotearoa many locals know, quiet, friendly, unpretentious.
How you been? Kia ora, kia ora. Busy?
Yeah. I really love Aotearoa, it's a neat little town.
And the Aotearoa that makes headlines.
There's only one law here, and that's us.
We have gang members going berserk at pubs, running right over town, chasing each other in cars, shooting each other, shooting up houses.
The new government's solution, a bold and forceful crackdown.
Can you deliver on this policy?
There's a beautiful new library that we've got in town.
Aotearoa Mayor David Moore loves this place.
But quiet. Actually, the town's quiet today, eh?
It's part of who he is, even though it's very different to the home he knew growing up.
It really had everything. We had a dairy factory, so the town was thriving. I was working in the BNZ locally, and the share market crashed, 87, and the dairy factory closed soon after that, so things declined quite rapidly.
He's been a beekeeper, a banker and a cop, working at Aotearoa Station in the early 2000s.
Oh, look, this station, it was fully staffed up until about 2013. You were able to have a good handle on who was needing to maybe go and be spoken to, and people would come forward and speak to the local police officers.
Now, fewer police and new gangs on the scene. It's estimated there are more than 1,400 gang members across the Bay of Plenty to just 800 frontline cops. In Aotearoa alone, there are the original gangs, Black Power Chapter, Mangukaha, and the Aotearoa Mongrel Mob.
Growing up in the 70s and 80s, pretty much they all worked. I played rugby with a few of them, so yeah, they were just part of our community. They've been here for a long time.
Hey!
Kia ora.
Hey, don't you believe it?
They're all good ones.
He was a gang member, wasn't he?
Maybe.
Maybe.
No,
Red car, facial tats, bit of a giveaway.
No, one of our friendly locals just saying hello.
In the 2010s, the Mongrel Mob barbarians arrived. A younger, more volatile chapter whose leader, Stephen Tiwana Taiatini, was run over and killed last June. Those responsible still haven't been found.
How big of a part do the gangs play in the distribution of drugs here?
I don't think you buy methamphetamine from the corner store.
Because a lot of them say, we don't do P, we kick our members out who do P. But it's got to be coming from somewhere,
look,
right?
I'm not that naive, but I wish that was the case. And the easiest way to check is checking our water samples. It doesn't lie.
It was the tangi for the slain barbarians' boss that led to opposition claims Aotearoa was being held hostage.
I want to talk about the situation that we've had in Aotearoa recently, with the mongrel mob deciding that they'd come out in numbers and take over the town.
Gang tension in the town raged on, a blaze at the crime scene where Taiatini was killed, then a shooting that seriously injured a local woman in October.
Because you're a mob member, it involves you.
Police came from out of town to carry out search warrants on Stephen Taiatini's son Mikhail, the new barbarians leader, and his family.
What the hell? You can't do that!
Those strong-arm tactics haven't exactly quashed gang activity. Police sources say young Barbarians associates were involved in this attack at a local festival last month. Now, the long arm of the law is set to come down even harder. A ban on gang patches and insignia, no more gang gatherings in public, and new rules that will stop gang offenders from associating with each other. Aotearoa locals are sceptical.
I think it's laughable to even attempt to do such a thing.
No, the police just want to leave the gangs alone and let them do their own thing, eh?
But it's police on the front line who have to enforce it, so we asked them.
My name's Pete King. I'm a senior constable stationed at Aotearoa Police Station. I've been in the job 40 years working for the New Zealand Police, 33 of those working at Aotearoa.
What attracted you to the police force in the first place?
Helping other people, I think, was sort of the main attraction. Being involved in or being responsible for serious crime mainly, serious drug offenders, rape offenders. Working in a rural area, you cover the entire spectrum of policing from intentional damage right through to homicide and everything between.
It's rare for serving police officers to break rank and speak candidly to media. Risky too, because Pete, a self-described true blue community cop, is not holding back.
Our staff here are just overwhelmed with work. They just cannot do it all. It's as simple as that. We have to prioritise our work, and to the point where a lot of crime is just getting left. It's just tossed aside pretty much. We just haven't got the staff to deal with it, to the point we're making our staff sick.
The Aotearoa district is large, and the Te Kaha station is only partially manned right now, meaning Aotearoa officers have to help cover that area too. Some are on long-term leave, and a couple are off to Aussie. The station must now rely on just 2 permanent frontline police officers. There should be 12.
Can you tell us how often it is that police in Aotearoa are sent out by themselves to hostile situations?
Every day. Firearms incidents, domestics, street disorder. Those are the ones where you like to strike violent offenders who are high on drugs or alcohol. 2 old dogs sitting together in the sun.
Pete is one of those on long-term leave. He was diagnosed with major depression 3 years ago. The cause, he says, was his job.
I was in a pretty dark place for quite some time. Had major effect on me, my family. Yeah, and again, I wouldn't want any of my colleagues to go there. I seriously wouldn't.
I'm in here everywhere. Eh?
On his doctor's advice, Pete's not yet gone back to work.
It's not just me saying this is my psychiatrist and my GP. If I return into the situation such as it is now, my health will deteriorate and I'll go downhill, back down the hole where I've just come from.
Given how often you are working on your own and the large number of gang members in this town, what do you make of the government's policy that would see you enforcing a patch ban?
Theoretically, a good idea, but I'll tell you, it's unworkable with the numbers we haven't got at the moment. It just will not work. Here in Aotearoa, you know, all those gang members their whole families are gang affiliated or, you know, in the gangs themselves. We can't attend all their domestics properly, never mind that.
Pete King was the only officer willing to go on camera, but he's far from alone in his concerns. We've spoken to a dozen current and former Aotearoa police officers about staffing and the government's new gang policy. We've agreed to keep their identities secret, so these are not their faces, but this is what they've told us.
If you've got 25 gang members outside the pub patched up, 3 staff in Aotearoa, then do the maths on that. How's it going to work? It's not.
The Barbarians are just young, full of testosterone idiots. If you're lacking the policing numbers, they just get the upper hand, and that's what's happening. I would never go and try and depatch someone because of some policy that someone in Wellington's told me to do. While they're sitting at home and having a hot cup of coffee, I'm putting my life at risk.
Police HQ insists officers aren't expected to put themselves at risk, and those working alone are able to delay their response until they have backup. At the moment, backup's being sent from Whakatane, 40 minutes away.
Whakatane cops don't want to be here, and they'll tell you that. They'll say, I must be on the naughty list because I got sent here.
The Crims would be rubbing their hands if they knew how few police we had on the road at any time, particularly in the evening.
A lot of people in the community will be pretty horrified to hear some of these stories.
The community, thank goodness, hasn't had an inkling of what's going on really behind the scenes with their policing in this town for a long time, and it's time they learn.
So, with a crackdown looming, how will gang members respond?
They got their uniform, the police, and we got our uniform. This one here overrules their one.
If they want a war, that'll start a war.
That highlights exactly why we need to clamp down on the gangs.
Aotearoa, in the sunny eastern Bay of Plenty, doesn't like to think of itself as a gang town, though there are certainly signs.
Did you look in the window?
Bulldogs.
And some gang members, like 74-year-old Wairata Te Oneone, descendant of the original Hapu Oneone people, believe they have ultimate authority, not police or the government.
We've heard claims that the mongrel mob runs this town. Would you agree with that?
I'll say yes.
Why is that?
We are the people of the land. I'm saying that's the mongrel mob. They're the tangata whenua.
Wairata's a life member of the mongrel mob, first affiliated more than 60 years ago. He says his days of committing crime are over, but he's not giving up his patch.
Police are on the streets saying, take your patch off. What do you think would happen?
It won't happen. You got to sit down to talk about these things. You can't just go there and force these things on people.
They also want to ban gang members gathering in public.
See, we can say the same thing. We want to ban you too.
They would argue that they have more authority though.
Yeah, where do you get your authority? We know where we're getting our authority, from this tāmoko.
Dion Waikato, another lifelong mobster, predicts any new laws around gang patches or gatherings will lead to a standoff of epic proportions.
Mongrel mob ain't the only gang in this country. We've got enough fellas to kick up. If we added every Black Power chapter in New Zealand, every tribesman, every Highway 61 here hunter, and on they go, yep, we've got a pretty even balance.
So a government crackdown on gangs will lead to conflict or violence, is what you're saying?
Of course, definitely. What do you think? I'm being real. It's no use me sitting there and piss-assing around with you and telling you bullshit.
And even the Police Association, which represents officers, has its doubts about how the policy will be enforced.
So if you're an officer working by yourself and you come across a group of patched gang members, would it pass a police risk assessment to seize those patches or arrest those gang members?
Unlikely to. If you apply a risk assessment, you'd look at, the threat they pose. Well, they're only wearing patches if they're not doing anything else. What's the necessity to act? You have to engage, and if they resist, physically remove them. Is that necessary?
So by police's own rules, this legislation would appear to be unenforceable.
I think it would be a mistake for New Zealanders to think that if a police officer's driving down the street and sees patched gang members, they're immediately going to stop and be able to take those patches off them. It's just not going to work in a lot of circumstances.
The lack of local cops hasn't gone unnoticed by those living in Aotearoa.
Do you think the town has enough police officers?
No. You see them going through town. They don't live here. No one wants to live here. The police don't want to live here. They live in Whakatane. They come out from out of town. So what's the point of, them coming in their cars and zooming past us? If they don't make contact with us and try to get to know us as a hapori, as a society, what's the point?
How concerned are you by the staffing situation in Aotearoa?
Well, I think it's very concerning, but wider than that, I worry that that's rural policing across New Zealand going forward. We've got the same problem when Tikawiti I talked about. I was back there recently. Only 2 officers were living in the town anymore. The rest, didn't live there. Struggling to get staff to work in Gore now. Wairoa is another example. That's always been a struggle to attract officers to Wairoa. But those rural communities really need these officers, so we're going to have to do something to change that.
Enter former cop and new police minister Mark Mitchell, ready to stake his reputation on his way being the right way, banning gang regalia as a first move.
We looked at Western Australia and it's been very effective in Western Australia, and virtually the gangs disappearing from view and the public not having to see them or deal with them or be intimidated by them.
What evidence do you have that it will work in New Zealand, given that your only example is in Western Australia, where the bikies just moved to a different state?
Well, I believe that we've got a world-class police service who are highly motivated and want to protect the community. So I think that that's going to be very effective in terms of dealing with gangs.
He says police will have the power to confiscate patches and gang regalia on the spot and destroy them, with charges for anyone who resists. And gatherings like gang tangi could result in mass arrests.
Do you have the numbers in the police force to be able to arrest your way out of a gang tangi with hundreds of gang members?
Well, I don't think we're going to have to arrest our way out of this. I think that the gangs are understanding that they had a very easy run under Labor for 6 years. I think the gangs understand that there's a different government in place now.
So you're saying gang members who are pretty famous for not following the law respect your government more, so they're going to listen more and not
Well, I don't
kick
care
up a
whether
fuss?
I don't care whether they respect us or not. They will understand that we have got zero tolerance for their nonsense and we are clamping down on it.
Tough talk, but is that all it is? Remember, in Aotearoa there are just 2 permanent frontline officers when there should be 12. The Police Association says other small stations have similar staffing problems. And it's going to take at least 2 years to train and deploy the 500 new cops that have been promised.
It's going to be hard to get the 500 within the 2 years, you acknowledge that?
Well, it's going to be a stretch, but I think we can do it.
So it's a challenge. And you've also acknowledged that police are being poached from Australia, and you've also acknowledged that there's a large number of police that are retiring.
I'm on the record of saying this several times.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm putting to you, given those challenges, do you not accept that it is going to be very difficult to bring in these new laws which are going to require
Not at all.
more resource?
They're 2 completely separate things. I mean,
How are they 2 completely separate things?
Because you're putting to me that you don't believe the police are able to enforce the laws that we're about to pass.
We're putting to you that police don't believe they're able to enforce
no,
it.
that's not true. That's a
It is true.
It's a
I've spoken to them.
mischaracterisation. Is that you're talking about 2 police officers that you've spoken to at Aotearoa that
No, we've spoken to 12, current and former.
Okay, so some of them have said that they are looking forward to the powers, but it's going to be very difficult to apply them. They are talking from their lived experience in Aotearoa, where last year you had the mongrel mob come in and take over the town. Well, there's a new government in place. We're not tolerating that.
Why should 2 permanent frontline police officers in Aotearoa be expected?
I've addressed that. That's nothing new in this country. 10 years I worked by myself. It's nothing new.
So your response to police concerns about understaffing is, well, it's always been that way and you can manage.
Each station will have an operational number that they try to operate with and stick to. That is an operational matter for the area commander and the district commander.
The minister wouldn't commit to ensuring more police officers for gang towns like Aotearoa. He also wouldn't comment on Pete King, the outspoken veteran cop who received an update on his employment from police shortly after we approached them for comment.
Hi, Kristen, how are you?
Good. How are you, Pete?
Good.
Good. Things have been developing quite quickly, haven't they?
Yeah, they certainly have been. I received a phone call from my association rep She's just received documentation from police hierarchy terminating my employment on medical grounds ending on the 13th of March this year.
How do you think they've been able to come up with an assessment of your current mental and physical state, given they haven't seen you for the last 7 months?
That's a good question.
Pete predicted this might happen when we first spoke in December. He showed us years' worth of correspondence to police, the IPCA and WorkSafe, pleading for safer work conditions.
I want people to see that I'm doing this because it's a last resort. I've done everything in my power, low-key and informally, to try and resolve this amicably and off record so that it doesn't come into the public spotlight. Come on.
Still recovering from major depression, Pete and his doctors say it's unsafe for him to return to the front line if the staff shortages at his station aren't fixed. Police say they're comfortable with the process around his medical discharge, but Pete's fighting it.
Do you want to go back to work?
Yep, I do. Yep. I love my job, love my community. I've still got a lot to offer.
Tangi moi.
Aotearoa Mayor David Moore loves his community too, but he wants those making decisions in Wellington to take note.
What do you think will happen here if police numbers aren't increased?
And my biggest fear is the community, if they had to take the law into their own hands, and it's not what you want in any society. If the support isn't there from the police, that's actually what will happen. That's my biggest fear.
Well, Mark Mitchell called this morning's press conference alongside Justice Minister Paul Goldsmith just days after our interview. They announced courts will be able to issue orders which stop gang offenders from communicating or associating for up to 3 years. And for wearing a patch in public, a fine of up to $5,000 or 6 months in prison is possible. The legislation will be introduced over the next 2 weeks, then go to Select Committee and is expected to be passed into law later this year. As for Pete King, the Police Association says it's reviewing his medical discharge to make sure the right process has been followed.